So I went by Green Flash, where I met Chuck Silva. Was the head brewer there for a long time, and was like, hey, I want to work on the bottling line, whatever you've got.
Cold call. Knock on the door. Hi.
Presenting The Wave by LA Top Team.
What's up, loyal listeners? Thank you guys for joining us for yet another episode of the most interesting show in real estate, The Wave. On this episode, we were graciously welcomed into the Arts District Brewing Company to meet with Devon Randall. She's their head brewer. She's been there for the past few years. She teamed up with a very big restaurant conglomerate and said, let's do this in the Arts District. She came from San Diego, which is basically the mecca of craft brew. She spent more than 5 years down there at two of the top breweries. You got to listen to figure out which ones they were. And we just had a blast. We got to try all of her beer that had been fermenting for up to a year, hear it straight from the brewer's mouth about what goes into brewing, the taste, the notes. It was absolutely amazing to hear. As a bonus, I know this is a real estate show. She got started in real estate. She went to Berkeley, graduated, went straight to work for her mother, who's a real estate agent on the west side of Los Angeles. Did that for a number of years. Definitely understands real estate, and we touch on it for 10 minutes or so. It's a good talk. She decided it wasn't for her, chased her dream in brewing, and it's been amazing. Obviously, she hasn't looked back. Moved down to San Diego, became one of the head brewers at a top brewery down there, basically got headhunted by a restaurant conglomerate up here to open up, and has been doing a lot to give back to the female community, helping empower them. And it's awesome because you think so much of beer as a man's thing. Men drink beer, it's a manly thing, but it was awesome to just see this chick in work boots and Dickies telling us, you know, the nitty gritty of what goes on. And it's awesome to see that she wants to help other young females do the same. And they offer scholarships through some of her Pink Boot Society. Eye-opening for me to see where kind of that industry is going. It's getting saturated. LA is a little bit behind the market as far as other areas like San Diego, the Pacific Northwest. So it's going to be interesting to see how Devon's able to fall into the landscape of things, because she's obviously a heavy hitter. She has the backing of all the heavy hitters. So as this thing starts to turn over, she's got a plan of how she wants to kind of stake her claim or make her mark. And it's really interesting. I'm going to be following along closely. That being said, make sure that you guys give us any sort of feedback you like. Make sure that if you're in the Arts District, stop by the Arts District Brewing Company. They got a restaurant in there. They got 22 beers on tap as of yesterday, so it'll probably be give or take around there. They got skee ball tournaments, video game tournaments. It's a bitch in place. Check it out. We're going to make sure that we put their handle in the description. Everything's going to be in the description. And yeah, if you got business opportunities for Devon or good ideas, whatever, all contact information is going to be there. Listen to the show, enjoy the show, and let us know what you think. How you doing, Devon?
Doing great. How are you?
Doing really well. Thank you for welcoming us into your location.
Of course.
Hustling and bustling. Seems like you guys got a little bit going on, getting ready for
The Great American Beer Festival. So that's what I'm kind of spending today, wrapping up some loose ends. All of the competition beer has been sent off. All of the festival beer has been sent off. So just getting our display ready and finalizing all our travel plans.
For those who don't know, including myself before we did our little rundown, what is the Great American Brew Festival?
The Great American Beer Festival is held in Denver every year, and it is both a competition and a large festival, the largest festival in the United States and the largest competition in the United States as well. And it's also a lot of fun. It's like a big family reunion.
How long have you been going?
This will be my 7th year, I believe. So, yeah.
Got some entries into the various contests this year?
Yeah, so there are different categories. There's maybe a couple hundred categories, and you're allowed 4 entries into the regular competition and 1 into the Pro-Am. So I've got 5 total entries.
So of the 200 categories, like what are the main ones? What are the main ones that people do and you want to win, that are notable to win?
There are some really big ones. IPA is the biggest one by far. I think every judge that participates has to judge IPA in addition to 1 or 2 other categories.
Do you have an IPA entry?
No.
None this year?
It's so competitive that it feels like kind of a crapshoot. So I went for different categories this year. I tend to do really well in dark categories, so I went pretty heavy on the dark. I also entered a Bohemian Pils, and the Pro-Am is a Helles Lager.
When's it coming up, the Great American Beer Festival?
It's on Thursday next week. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and the awards are on Saturday, so cross your fingers for me.
Fingers crossed for you. So are all the brews that you're going to be entering all finished up and bottled and packaged and already there?
They're all there,
Okay.
yeah.
So when do you start preparing for that? 'Cause it's the biggest contest of the year, right?
I registered back in like June, July, and those entries actually got sent off last week for the festival and about 3 weeks before that for the competition.
But you're pretty much thinking all year about what you're going to concoct and make up.
It's definitely on your mind, yeah. And then every other year there's the World Beer Cup. So this coming year, the World Beer Cup is in Nashville, and that will be in April, I believe. It changes a little bit, but sometimes you have two big competitions in a year. So
Right. Are you going to take the same entries to both? Well, if you win, you want to, obviously.
The way I feel is that if something wins a medal, then it gets a pass. It gets to go next year.
Exactly.
And then whatever else you feel most confident about. And feeling confident about a beer winning a competition can be different than feeling like a beer tastes really good. Trying to win the competition, you're trying to brew something to style. Whereas just making a beer that tastes really good, that can be out of style.
So the World Beer Fest, what's the craft beer scene like outside of the United States? 'Cause
The World Beer Cup is actually held in the U.S.
every year, or
Yeah.
every other year when
They
it
just
goes?
invite all countries to participate. They're both put on by the Brewers Association, which is a U.S. company. There are competitions. There's a big one in South America, like Copa Mundial, and then there are some big ones in England and other countries. I haven't been to one of those, although that would be a lot of fun. But there are lots of other international competitions.
And the festival, aside from just, it is Beer Fest, aside from just having the competition, there's all kinds of different, activities, networking, booths?
Yes, yeah, there are lots of events. A lot of our vendors put on events. So like Brewer Supply Group always puts on, nice lunch or get together with appetizers and beers and stuff like that. And many of our chemical suppliers and, hop suppliers and yeast suppliers put on events too. There's also just our peers are putting on various events with different bars and restaurants. So there's usually lots going on.
And is it always in Denver?
The
Great
GABF
American?
is in Denver. Yeah, the World Beer Cup changes every year. So this coming year it's in Nashville, which I'm very excited about. I've never been. Last year it was in DC.
DC? Mm-hmm. I'm getting ready to go to the South myself in a couple weeks. I'm excited. New Orleans.
Awesome. I haven't been there either.
Gotta go. Well, hopefully. I'll see how it goes. It'll be my second time there. How long have you been brewing beer? You've been going to the Great American Beer Fest for 7 years, but
Yeah.
been brewing for...
I've been brewing for 7 years as well. I started 2010 at Lost Abbey. That was my first brewing job, but before that I homebrewed for a few years.
Mm-hmm.
And I was about 25, 26 when I started working for a brewery professionally, but I started drinking great beer when I was 21.
So how long have you been into beer since you could drink it?
Since I was 21, I worked at a really cool restaurant and bar in Berkeley called Raleigh's, and they had about 24 taps. So they did carry Budweiser and Coors, but they also carried Anchor and Bear Republic and Sierra Nevada and what interesting beers were around at that time, because it was a little bit more limited. But they made a point of making sure that their servers knew about the beer that they were serving and, took
You
pride
loved
and
going there,
interest
and
in
that's where
that.
you kind of fell in love with beer?
I worked there, yeah, so I was one of the servers, so it was like you had to learn this information, and I found that I really liked telling that story to the customers. I really liked when someone was like, well, what makes an IPA an IPA? And I loved being able to give them a little bit of history, which also, tells you about its flavor and made it really interesting for me. So that's when I realized that I liked good beer. And that was about the time I stopped drinking the macro lager.
Right. And what took you up to Berkeley? Was it school?
Yeah, UC Berkeley.
Nice. I went to SC. We just played each other this last weekend.
Yeah, I hear we got slaughtered.
No, I mean, you guys are, honestly, you guys are going to be good this year. You guys got a new coaching staff in there.
Yeah.
It's pretty easy to recruit to the school, you know? I mean, they should be able to get a lot of high-level talent there. I'd expect to see a turnaround there in the next few years.
Yeah.
So the game was a good, entertaining game, you know?
We've always had good back and forth between SC.
I used to love going up there and playing there. I used to play at SC, so I used to love going up to Cal and seeing all the hippies on the hill. And
Tightwad Hill is awesome.
When I was there, it was like the last years of them doing that, so it was like they were standing their ground and doing the stronghold. It was pretty awesome to go up there. So Cal, did you graduate? Did you say, screw this, I'm going to do beer? And
no, I graduated with a degree in mass communications, which I had not really put to use in the communications front, but it was a great experience.
Well, are you involved a lot on the business side, or just do you strictly try to keep it brewing?
I do some of and I was actually going to talk about like my work in real estate marketing actually really tied into beer marketing.
So you do so your communications degree did help you? In
a way, yeah.
Perfect.
I would say the work experience helps more than the communications degree, other than just learning how to write and use good grammar and communicate.
Well, since it came up, let's jump into real estate a little bit. That's what you did before?
That was my first job out of college. So I actually, after college, I went sailing for 6 months, moved to South Africa, helped commission a catamaran, and sailed from South Africa to the Caribbean.
Wow.
Got off in Bonaire.
How many people? Solo?
I was 4 of us.
Okay.
No, yeah.
I was going to say,
I had my competent crew by that time, but yeah, it was not single-handing is really hard.
Yeah.
I think mentally as well as you've got to have a very high skill level.
Yeah.
No, I went with my college boyfriend, his dad, and a family friend, and yeah, it was about 36 days at sea. We stopped at 2 mid-Atlantic islands, St. Helena and Ascension. And St. Helena, I believe, is still only accessible by yacht. It's a really interesting island. Ascension is owned by Britain, and so it's got like an Air Force and military background, but it is more open now to people traveling by yacht.
You said South Africa to the Caribbean?
Yeah, so when you go from South Africa to the Caribbean, there are 2 islands that you can stop at, and we did. Yeah.
Otherwise, it's open.
Otherwise, it's like, it took us about 36 days, and we had the 2-day stopover, one at St. Helena and one at Ascension.
Did you run into any, before we get into real estate, I got to talk about this, sorry. There's so many things that can happen 36 days on the ocean. You can't look that far in advance with weather.
We had some squalls. Those were really crazy. You see them on the radar, and you've got like, it's just like a sudden, really gusty storm, but it's small. So it doesn't last long, but it can be very destructive if you have your sails all the way up. It can capsize your boat if you don't put them down. So you've got to have someone always watching the radar and make sure you see it in time. They
come out of nowhere?
They come out of nowhere, and they're sort of rogue. They don't really follow patterns that I remember. They're just sort of out there, so you just keep your eyes open. It's not like a big storm that you would hear about coming. It's just like a little 5-minute thing.
That bloops up.
Yeah.
Thermal and wind change, and something just causes it.
Yeah, and then you'll just get these crazy winds, and it'll get real choppy, and you just need to drop your sails. And
so you got a bunch of those?
Not a bunch, but a few, and they're pretty frightening if you don't get your sails down really fast.
I would imagine.
And then what else was really fun?
Sailing
up from. Sorry?
Was there big surf, calm surf?
Coming up from South Africa, the water's really cold down there. So we left from Cape Town, and going up the coast of South Africa was 2 men on every shift, and one person would sleep like on the deck while the other person was captaining the boat. And that was a little terrifying. You had to have your foul weather gear on. If you went overboard and no one saw you, done. A minute goes by and no one knows that you're overboard.
Right.
You're toast. So you're always like, you've got a rope to the boat at all times. So it's a little hard.
Even when sleeping?
Yeah. So it's a little hard to move around. But there was really cool bioluminescence. So it's when like the plankton glows in the dark, but only when disturbed. So your wake would look really pretty.
When you hit the boat wake would glow because of the plankton.
So you've got a trail behind the boat, and you can see the little white tops on the waves. That was really neat. And then after that, it was pretty smooth sailing once we got more towards the Caribbean and towards the...
No pirate stories?
No pirates, no. Every once in a while, you'd see like a big freighter go by, but...
So you really didn't see many people then even?
No.
It was pretty wide open.
I think I read like a book every single day.
I was just going to ask, what did read?
I read books every day.
Read
so
books.
many books.
And then the communication's all through satellite.
Mm-hmm.
It's all satellite and CB radio.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so like once a day we would check in and check our email, but yeah, I don't know how our communications have changed now, if it's any better, but it was pretty infrequent.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you graduated from Berkeley, sailed 6 months, and then got back and you said real estate?
I decided to get off the boat. It started, we got to the Caribbean and we started taking on passengers, and it was the captain's boat. It was my boyfriend's father's boat, and so he had friends visiting, and it started to be a little bit more like work,
right?
Because nobody knew how to do anything but us, so
right.
Moving the boat around was all our job. And I just kind of was ready to come home after 6 months of that. And the first job that I was able to get was working for Prudential in Pacific Palisades, and worked for a really great manager there. His name's John Clausen. He's still there, and really enjoyable experience. But yeah, that was my first job out of college. Got that through my mom because she worked at that office.
So your mom works in real estate?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah, she just retired.
My mom should retire, but she won't. She owns an escrow company. It's family ties for me too.
Yeah.
That's how I got into it.
If you own the company, I guess you can like kick back a little and let it.
She won't kick back though. She's like, she doesn't want me to say her age on here, but she's of age to retire, and she is going harder than ever. Goes harder than anyone I know. It kind of keeps me motivated to keep going. So
yeah.
I want her to retire though. She's done well enough for herself. I want her to kind of put it away.
Well, I've been looking for something to buy right now, but I'm on the very low end of the market. I've seen some super interesting houses out there.
Tell me, where are you looking to buy? Around here? Close to work?
Yeah, I mean, Highland Park, I think I'm pretty much priced out of, but looking in El Sereno, Pasadena, those areas are still there's sometimes a few little gems. But when you're looking at the lower end of the market, I've seen like a toilet where the refrigerator should be. You know, there's a hole cut out in the wall, and you're like, that would be great for a refrigerator, but there's a toilet there.
Right.
And then I recently saw one where the master bedroom closet was converted into a bathroom with like the sliding mirror doors. It's really fun.
That was a bathroom?
Yeah.
Great ventilation in a bedroom.
Yeah, right? Ugh. And then the shower door just opening right onto the carpet in the bedroom. So some really interesting setups out there.
So aside from the podcast, I buy and sell houses. I flip houses.
Okay.
So I run into that stuff all the time.
Yeah.
Dead animals in houses.
Oh yeah. The laundries in the crawl space.
Be. Yeah. Laundry seriously, all of that.
And unpaved garages, like it's just dirt. I didn't realize that actually used to be okay.
Northeast LA, that's huge.
Yeah, I'd never
huge.
seen that until recently.
I just moved out of there. I used to live, I lived in El Sereno. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, Rose Hill. You know where that is?
Yes.
Yeah, I lived on Rose Hill, right there, the palm tree hill.
How did you like it?
I loved it.
Okay.
But the house value went up so dang quick, I had to sell.
Yeah.
I bought it for $530 and sold it for $640. 13 months later.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say no. I can't.
It's incredible. Yeah, I'm hoping that there'll be a cool down, like maybe November, December. Went to a bunch of open houses last weekend. I'll be going again this weekend. It's like my big hobby on the weekends.
Your best bet? Are you representing yourself? You're working?
Working. My mom still has her license.
Okay.
She's not in the office anymore. She's got one more year. So my mom's going to
let the listing agent double-end it.
Yeah.
She's 2.5% in their pocket. Anyway,
yeah.
we can talk about that another time. But there's some neighborhoods up there that I want to tell you about because I lived there for a year that I think you should keep an eye on.
Awesome.
So how'd you like real estate? You got a job with Prudential. And that's just a real estate brokerage, like a standard brokerage, or?
Yeah, it's now Berkshire Hathaway.
Okay.
Was Prudential back when I worked there. So at that time, it was like data entry for the MLS, but they didn't really have it online yet. Mm-hmm. So you'd get lots of like scrawl. You know, some of the real estate agents are like older and not so tech savvy. So you'd get these scrawled legal size forms with like the really tiny boxes, and they'd try to fit in like way too many words, and you'd have to transfer that online. And so that was interesting. And with that came, writing descriptions or rewriting descriptions for people to make them legible and legal.
So real estate now, so the MLS was basically when you were working in real estate, it was like that was why you were a realtor, so that you could have access to that MLS, right?
I mean, we also did marketing, worked with the LA Times,
Right.
and there was...
I mean, not you personally. I mean, like, as a realtor, I'm only saying this because...
why go with a brokerage? Or?
Exactly. That's the reason that an agent was an agent, because they have access to the MLS, which allows them to interact with other agents.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could go out on your own and be your own broker, but I assume that's a lot more liability, so...
Well, my point now is, with Zillow and everything like that, really agents don't really supply much. I'm an agent myself, you know what I mean? I'm a real estate agent myself, and I'm like, what really do I offer clients? It's not knowledge, it's not credentials. They don't want to know about the house that they're buying. They could look up and find out just as much as me online.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
So it's interesting.
Understand that. And I don't know when the tipping point happened where like Zillow and those things really became reliable, but I feel like they're pretty reliable at this point. At that point, I don't think that they were when I first started.
I mean, that's what I was getting at. The game has changed.
Yeah.
It was like, it's different now. That MLS is like, I mean, I use the MLS and I like the MLS and I buy properties and sell properties there. But I use Zillow as a tool, Redfin as a tool, all the tools that the normal consumers use. It's crazy what's at the fingertips of
that's
the
funny.
consumer now. So you were doing data entry there for how long? 6 months? A year?
Yeah, about a year.
Did you get your license while you were there?
No, I got my license like a year later when I was at Sotheby's.
Okay, so you went from Prudential, which is now Berkshire Hathaway, to Sotheby's in the Palisades?
In Brentwood.
Okay.
And
Selling
doing
houses?
kind of the same thing. No, doing more marketing, as well as some data entry stuff. And after that, I moved back to Prudential, working with my mom, and that's when I got my license. That's right before I started with her.
Okay, so were you guys ever like a tandem duo, or did you throw the idea around?
Yeah, I mean, we worked together, but she was the agent on everything. I was just learning from her, and it was just she was busy, and I wanted to do something a little different. Data entry gets you down after a while.
So what took you, sounded like you were on a path to do real estate then, you get in with your mom, you guys are doing the thing, and you helped a lot with the marketing and bringing her current business up into the new millennium, it sounds like, and just doing the marketing and everything. What made you say, let's go brew some beer?
Well, my grandmother was a realtor. My mom was a realtor.
My mom's an escrow.
And I didn't really have, after Berkeley and my mass communications degree, didn't really have a direction I for sure wanted to go in. Kind of landed in the real estate job, so the natural progression forward was not to do more and more administrative, because that only really goes so high there. With a real estate brokerage was to move into sales. And I just was not that good at it. I was not that into it.
That's okay.
And at some point I was like, what am I doing? I was like, how am I going to progress in this? Why am I working at this when I don't think it's really going to work in the long run? I had an apartment I couldn't afford, and I was just like, what am I doing with this? So I started just keeping myself busy and just pursuing all of my hobbies. I took a sewing class, I joined a swimming club, and I was going running all the time, going to Homebrew club a lot, and just realized that I really liked homebrewing. And I was doing that every Friday, Saturday.
Tell me what Homebrew club is. You said it a couple times, but I'm not sure.
So there's a few homebrew clubs, and they're basically just affiliations of people that gather and share their homebrew, share tips, maybe trade equipment once in a while.
Groups of people who brew beer at home in their garage or on their own.
And it's usually a 5-gallon batch, which is not really that much to go through if you've got friends to share it with. And so people were kind of brewing all the time and sharing it with everyone in the club. And I just realized that I really liked doing that I was doing that over everything else.
Out of all the activities you were exploring, you said, this is kind of what's pulling me the hardest.
Yeah.
Did you seem to be good at it at that point? Or were you brewing, or
You
were
know,
you just showing up
I don't
and
think
learning?
I was fantastic at it at that point. I made a couple of, you can do extract batches. So you take out like part of the equation of brewing, makes it a little bit more digestible when you don't understand everything. So I was doing some extract brews that were like nothing special. I just really liked it and really wanted to learn more. So no, I would never say I was like a great home brewer. I probably did like 15 batches total before I started working full-time at a brewery. I just knew that I wanted to do it more.
Right, and the desire was there, and you were willing to work hard, and you said, okay, I know what it takes to kind of make it in an industry, and that's an industry I'm down for.
Yeah, no, I liked the story of it all, and when it comes down to what you're doing every day, there are a lot of components. There is, you know, today I've been doing a lot of administrative type things and making sure things get delivered and logistics and stuff like that. Some days it's all physical. We're hauling 300-pound bins around and getting a freight elevator up and down. Some days it's more about designing recipes, and so then you're, you know, kind of engineering backwards and things like that. Some days it's about like writing really floral sounding descriptions for the beers, and you're doing really artsy things. Some days it's about getting to do a cool podcast and
who
talk about what you've been doing.
oversees all of that? All those things that you listed, you kind of have to make sure.
That's what kind of makes up my job.
Okay.
Is all that.
So it's a lot of business. It's not just brewing, picking this ingredient. It's so much more.
Yeah. No, even if you're, so I run the brewery here, but even if you're just working at a brewery under someone else, there's still a lot of logistics going around.
Yeah.
You know, someone might tell you, go mill this recipe. It has, you know, X amount of grain A, X amount of grain B, X amount of grain C. You go grab your stuff. You don't have enough of grain B. So then you've got to make a decision. You've got to, you know, find a substitution, check in, is that substitution okay? So there's all sorts of decisions going on all the time at all levels.
And just real quick, the process for brewing beer, is it like brewing a coffee? You grind down what you need, you soak it and let it do its thing?
Pretty similar.
Essentially. Sorry if that was a clunky way to describe it.
Oh, that's, I mean, somewhat, right? So you take the whole grains, it's barley grain primarily, and you'll crack those in half through a mill. So basically what we're trying to do is break them open so that we can get to the starch inside. You're going to combine that starch with hot water. There's an enzymatic reaction that occurs that turns the starch into liquid sugar. You drain that liquid sugar off and you put it in a kettle, much the same as a kettle that you have over your stove. So it's gas fired. You heat that liquid sugar to boiling for like anywhere from 60 minutes to 3 hours, depending on the beer. That's where you add your hops, and hops contribute bitterness, flavor, and aroma in varying amounts depending on the beer. And then you chill it back down to room temperature. You send it to another vessel that's been cleaned and sanitized, and then you add your yeast. Then it takes the yeast about 2 weeks to eat through all of the sugar, and then it kind of goes back into hibernation, falls back out.
So is beer living when you drink it?
It can be.
Can be? Can
If
help with
it,
digestion?
unless it's pasteurized. Pasteurized would mean that it's like flash pasteurized, so everything would be dead. If it's not, I would think that any fresh beer out of a brew pub like this that serves off of their tanks or has pretty fresh beer like within a month probably has a few living yeast cells in it. Now, if it's really filtered, like say some of the bigger breweries, they're all going to be filtering their beer pretty heavily. That may filter everything out, it may not.
Tell me about, based on the research I did, some of your women's organizations. Look like you're big and heavy into helping women do their thing.
Yeah, there's the school that I went to, high school was all girls, was Marymount High School. There is the Pink Boots Society, which is a women in beer organization that works to, they collect money and they provide scholarships. So,
To high school girls going to college?
More to beer industry professionals who want to up their game.
Cool.
So they'll provide you with maybe a semester at the Master Brewers Association if they have a course going on, or the Cicerone, which is like the equivalent of a sommelier. Or they'll do, you know, a trip to Germany to like meet German
cool.
brewmasters or something.
So they help get women
a leg up.
Yeah, a leg up.
Yeah,
Fair
absolutely.
game. I was noticing there's a whole lot of dudes in here. Is that kind of how it's spread out in the
It's
industry?
a good mix. You know, as far as like the bar staff, I think it's pretty mixed. I think that's pretty 50-50. As far as the brewer side, because it is very physical and because it has been dominated by men, I think there are fewer women for that reason, just more that they don't, it doesn't look like an option, even though it totally is. As more women get into those roles, I think it'll be easier for people to see themselves going that direction, and I think women in brewing will continue to grow. Some people get intimidated by the physicality of it. It's also like dirty. Like, I am super comfortable in a pair of like Dickies carpenter pants and work boots. That's actually what I like to wear. That's totally fine with me. Some people not so much. They'd rather be wearing like business attire, wearing heels or something like that. So it takes a certain type of mindset that you want to do that.
But it's good that you're showing people, and the organization that you're helping with shows women that, hey, even though this is a male-dominated society or like a male-dominated field or always thought it was a manly thing, women can do it too and make damn good beer.
Yeah, and then
Really
as far as
beer.
like what beer is, a lot of people picture beer as like fizzy yellow beer,
Right.
which it's not. It also can have there's really dark beers, there's really hoppy bitter beer, there's fruity beer, there's sour beer. So I think just as beer becomes more varied for people, so too will like the background of brewers become more varied.
And more fans are going to jump on board too, because they're going to say, oh, I don't like IPAs, but oh, I just found out about sours, and then they'll open up that door and fall into Pandora's box that way, you know?
Absolutely.
Just more and more fans.
Yeah.
I went to all-boys Catholic school.
Around here?
No, I went to Damien High School in Laverne.
Okay.
Yeah, do you know where San Dimas is, Raging Waters?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like a mile from Raging Waters, all-boys Catholic. It's kind of like the Loyola of the Inland Empire.
Yeah, I was going to say Loyola, Crespi. I'm trying to think who else I would
it's like the
remember.
Loyola of the Inland Empire.
Okay.
Yeah, so I
got
always
that.
have a special connection with all boys and all girls school,
Yeah.
high school people. It's like you
Totally.
get it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So Marymount is the girls' school for...
Loyola.
Okay.
But I think it was more of like a casual affiliation.
Okay.
It wasn't like everyone's
Those are the
definitely
guys
split
that you
that
hung
way.
out with, though.
I came from public school, so I didn't
So you
really...
went 8th grade public school into private
That
high
was
school?
a hard transition, yeah.
I can imagine.
And I remember being like, oh my God, everyone's so like behind here.
Yeah.
So I was in public school in Santa Monica. So I guess we thought we were super cool, and then going to girls' school felt like everyone was a little sheltered, but it let me focus on studying, and I don't think I would have done as well had all the distractions of teenage social life been there.
Your parents didn't want you going to Samo?
No, yeah. Yeah, we moved around that time and ended up going to Marymount. So,
Marymount?
yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I always have such a special connection when like I said, you understand what that person's, high school experience was like. I feel like it's very similar, whether it was here or Inland Empire or wherever. It's just a lot of the same things that we experienced.
Yeah, a lot of like structure and values instilled in it, and the teachers were really excellent too.
I was going to ask you about the competition in the brew game, but we just went over the Great American Beer Fest. Is it bitter competition or is it friendly? It sounds very friendly.
It's mostly friendly. I came from San Diego brewing. That's where so I was in Los Angeles doing real estate,
Right.
and I moved to San Diego to pursue brewing because at that time there were like 3 breweries in LA.
Is that where Lost Abbey is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Lost Abbey's in San Marcos, which is close to Escondido, San Diego. So at
You
that
applied
time,
from here and said, I want to get a job where it's happening?
No, I showed up at like 4 different breweries, and I was studying for the BJCP, which is Beer Judge Certification, which is similar to Cicerone, but more focused on brewing, as opposed to just tasting and evaluating. So I think people took me a little more seriously because I was like halfway through that course. And I actually was thinking about moving to San Diego and was on my way to a real estate job that I was interviewing for to be an assistant for someone else in La Jolla.
Residential real estate? You're just
Yeah. And so I was like, okay, if I'm down here for this interview in La Jolla for this job, I might as well stop by these breweries and see what I can do. So I went by Green Flash, where I met Chuck Silva. Was the head brewer there for a long time. And was like, hey, I want to work on the bottling line, whatever you've got.
Cold call. Knock on his door. Hi.
happens to them a lot. They actually did have like a bottling line just full of green people that showed
Volunteers.
up. Yeah.
Interns, so to say.
Yeah. No, they'd pay you, but it was, it was full of people trying to break into the brewing industry. And he never called. And I like a year or two later, he was like, "Yeah, I remember you." And he was like, "I didn't think that you would show up all the way from LA." I was like, proved you wrong.
Right.
So I went also to Stone, and they were having none of that. They sent me away. I went to a smaller brewery, Oceanside Ale Works, and they were like, sure, you can come watch. So I did that a couple of times, and then I got really lucky at Lost Abbey and ended up meeting the head brewer, and he was like, all right, come in tomorrow at 6 a.m. So I stayed at my friend's house. I went to Walmart and picked up some boots. Yeah, and I came back the next day and did everything I could without getting in the way. So I would if I saw a broom, I would sweep up a corner, or trash needs to go out. I know where the dumpster is. So I did stuff like that as much as I could.
Had you done that previously in your life, or was this just, or are you that type of person?
I was looking for ways to
Get
have
a leg